This is the brand new HOKA Speedgoat 7. And this is the Speedgoat 6. On the surface they look almost identical, but HOKA have actually changed more in this series than they have done in years of making the Speedgoat. The Speedgoat has always been one of their safest and most dependable shoes for long distance runs, terrain and mountain running. It's always been known for its protection, its stability and its reliability. And the Speedgoat 6 was protective and reliable. But let's be honest, it was a little bit firm and a little bit boring underfoot, especially compared to the Speedgoat 5. With the Speedgoat 7, they've changed the midsole, the heel geometry, the upper, the fit and the outsole layout, so it's a completely revamped shoe. The big question is, do these changes actually now make it the Speedgoat, or have they moved it too far away from what we really loved in the original Speedgoat series? We're going to answer all of those questions in this review, and we're also going to compare it to the very popular ASICS Trabuco 14. But before we talk about the cushioning on the ride, first thing you'll notice when you look at the Speedgoat 7 is it has a brand new upper. The material is more abrasion resistant, it feels tougher through the forefoot, and the toe bumper at the front is a little bit more rigid, adding extra elements of protection. So if you regularly clip rocks, bush routes or run on narrow technical trail, front of the shoe immediately feels more protected. The fit through the toe box is a little bit wider than what we saw in the Speedgoat 6, and personally that was a big issue for me. It does still taper a little bit, but it's broader around the ball of the foot. But it is important to say early on that the volume is still a little bit too low for my liking in the toe box. So if you felt that in the Speedgoat 6 it just rubbed off the top of your toes, this is going to be the same issue that you'll have in the Speedgoat 7. And a big irritation for a lot of people in the Speedgoat 6 was the tongue. It was very thin and just a little bit too short. So if you're someone who experienced irritation at the front of the ankle, this was a big problem in the Speedgoat 6. They rectified this by adding a tiny bit more padding but extending the length of the Speedgoat 7 tongue. So you get plenty of protection on the front of the ankle. No longer a problem. You can see that we almost have this type of cage effect on the upper. Combined with a new lacing system, it really helps to wrap around your foot and lock it down inside the center of the shoe. It is a small change, but I think it will make a big difference to some of you who are apprehensive about upgrading to the Speedgoat 7. We've a little bit lower of height on the Speedgoat 7 around the heel, so it may not be as accommodating to some of you who found the Speedgoat 6 beneficial if you've got conditions like Haglund's deformity. And as we move down the back of the shoe, we still have a moderately rigid heel counter to try and wrap around that ankle, add extra elements of support. And a big upgrade has been on the split heel bevel on the back of the shoe. So you can see it's much more split, so it's decoupled up the center of the back of the shoe. Sounds a little bit technical, but essentially what it does is you've got a greater curve there, so when you're descending it means you get a smoother transition from the back to the front of the shoe, and therefore making it a much more enjoyable ride overall. So if you're someone who spends a lot of time running downhill on steep technical descents, you're really going to appreciate the changes in the bevel, in addition to what we can see on the outsole. But quickly, let's run through some of the key numbers and figures on the Speedgoat 7. Still have a 37-32mm stack with a 5mm drop, however the Speedgoat 7 is now lighter. It comes in at 272 grams versus 283 grams in a size 9 men's US, so it's dropped 11 grams in weight, which is welcome to most, especially if you're running faster races. The midsole has also changed. So in the Speedgoat 6 we had the classic CM EVA cushioning, and a lot of people felt that was really firm and not very responsive, but we now have a super critical EVA built into the Speedgoat 7. But I'll come back to how that actually runs in a moment, because it becomes much more meaningful when we compare it to the brand new midsole that we have in the ASICS Trabuco 14. So let's move on to what I actually like about the new upgrades in the Speedgoat 7. The first and biggest improvement is that the midsole actually feels alive again. It's noticeably more responsive and energetic than the flat, firm feel that we got in the Speedgoat 6, which was really a big letdown compared to what we saw in the Speedgoat 4 and 5. So this feels softer underfoot but not mushy or unstable, so it's a really fine balance that they struck here. It feels lighter underfoot thanks to the reduction in weight, and that bouncy, energetic feel means that it transitions really nicely from the back to the front of the shoe. The second big improvement is that heel bevel, which ensures a smooth transition throughout the whole shoe. So those of you who spend a lot of time on long technical descents, you're going to really appreciate this subtle change. The third thing that I really like is the change in the tongue. It sounds small, but makes a big difference to people who get irritation at the front of the ankle, and really the one in the Speedgoat 6 was a little bit of a waste of time. But unfortunately, like most updates, there are some disappointing features to this shoe. The first is the toe box overall. Yes, it's a little bit wider, but still a little bit too tapered for my liking. It doesn't facilitate the natural splaying of your toes as you walk or as you run. Yes, they generally make it a little bit more tapered to give you a bit more of a race tighter feel, and it can be a little bit more helpful in technical terrain, but overall it's better for your foot to have a little bit more space for your toes to enjoy so it doesn't compress them, especially when you do long runs in this shoe. Higher volume in the shoe would be welcome for most people as well, again just facilitating extra movement in that toe box. You do have a relatively stiff forefoot in the Speedgoat 7, but having a rock plate in there will just add that extra element of protection on the foot, especially if you spend a lot of time on technical, rocky, sharp or broken trails. Now historically the Trabuco series was a bit more of a hybrid shoe, but thanks to the recent upgrade in their midsole, it's a bit more of a competitor to what we see in the Speedgoat 7. It sits at 35mm in the rear foot, 27 in the forefoot, giving you an 8mm drop, so 8mm versus the 5mm in the Speedgoat 7. It comes in at 281 grams, so not hugely different, and has the brand new FF Blast Max cushioning that we see in the road running series of the Nova Blast 5. Now they use a denser material than what we have in the Nova Blast 5, so it's still very energetic on the foot, but gives you a bit more stability to it. It has a rock plate in the forefoot for added protection, and it has ASICS grip on the outer sole, which adds extra elements of traction, and on top of the shoe they couldn't be any more contrasting. They produced a new last in the Trabuco 14, so that's the shape that they use within the shoe. It's got really good lockdown in the midfoot and exceptional width in the forefoot without being too wide. So often shoe companies get this wrong. They try to widen the shoe, but then when you're changing direction or going downhill, your foot slips down and your big toe can rub off the front. Not the case with the Trabuco. Lockdown is excellent in the midfoot and then plenty of space in the forefoot. Something that HOKA could really learn from. Underneath the shoe we had 5mm lugs in the Speedgoat 7. There's a new layer of the lug pattern as well to give you extra traction going downhill, and it has the Vibram Mega Grip, which we don't have in the ASICS. So it wins a little bit in terms of giving you extra grip and traction on wet rocks or in muddy terrain. In terms of performance, if you're on a flatter surface or gentle inclines, you have a faster, more responsive, bouncier, energetic shoe in the Speedgoat 7. Yes, the FF Blast Max cushioning is much faster and energetic than what we saw in the Trabuco 13, but it just doesn't match the supercritical foam in the Speedgoat 7. So the Trabuco 14 and the Speedgoat 7 are closer than ever, but there's still some subtle differences. Better grip and traction in the Speedgoat 7, a little bit more energetic and a little bit more springy underfoot. In the Trabuco 14 you get a better toe box, better fit on top of the shoe, and it is quite fun to run in overall compared to the previous Trabuco series. So if you're looking for more of a race focused shoe for medium to longer distance runs, then you might look towards the Speedgoat 7, especially if you're on more technical terrain or deep mud. If you're looking for a bit more of a versatile option with a better fit in the toe box, you might look towards the Trabuco 14. So is it worth upgrading for the Speedgoat 7? For me, thanks to the midfoot feel, slightly better toe box and the real spring and extra traction underfoot, yes. If you would like a firm shoe that gives you a good ground contact feel, you might stick with the Speedgoat 6 while it's still on sale. If you want a versatile hybrid option, think about the Trabuco 14, which we have a brand new review on. And like always, we got links to all the shoes in the description if you want to check out the latest price on Amazon. If you're new to the channel, like and share and subscribing is always appreciated, as it allows us to create more reviews on trail specific shoes. Thank you very much for watching.